When we came in here we had a lovely welcome from the harbour master Ian, and today Keith is on duty, and Keith has been wonderfully helpful as well. He's sourced our diesel for us and the gas, and we find ourselves just so happy to be in Peterhead, that place that people treat as a stop off, and we love to actually stop off and stay for a while. It's beautiful. Ian said to us that well, when the fog comes in it's just Peterhead, but when the sun shines it's beautiful. And I have to agree, that sun is just creeping through today, and suddenly it lights up the rocks and I can feel the warmth of it on my skin, and it is fantastic to be up here, our first stop in Scotland. What a wonderful place to be.
Hello and a warm welcome back on board Altor of Down in Peterhead. We hope you enjoy this episode.
I find the harbour walls like Peterhead Harbour Wall, they blow my mind. I mean, this place gets exposed to some enormous gales. Last year they had 100 knots that blew through here, and Ed's boat, Leah, was here and got sort of pushed hard up against the pontoon, and a few of the spray hood poles were bent, and I just can't believe that they built these walls, I don't know, late 1800s I think, courtesy of the prisoners in the prison around the corner. I think that's why they built the prison here, so they could build the harbour wall. And over 100 years later, over 100 winters of pounding, and these walls somehow stand up to the ferocity of the sea. And we've been out in some windy weather, we know how powerful that sea is, let alone when it's meeting a solid wall and just smashing into it. It blows my mind. And all along here is this harsh and unforgiving rock. I'm yet to see a rock that isn't harsh and unforgiving. But anyway, this rugged coastline, it's beautiful. Totally different to the west coast, but beautiful nonetheless.
Our soft spot for Peterhead is not blind to its sometimes slightly harsh and edgy nature, but we love it nonetheless and always receive a friendly welcome here.
Cheers Peterhead, had a great time as usual. See you again.
The exit seems much easier than the entrance.
It does.
We have lovely southerly winds, and hopefully we'll make it all the way to the Orkney sailing, not motoring, sailing.
Oh, I love your optimism. I think we should have at least some sailing, but it looks like it might die out towards the end. But no, come on, let's go with the Krasiska optimism. We're going to sail all the way.
We always have a plan, but ultimately it is Mother Nature's fickle finger of fate that decides our destiny and destination. With that in mind, we simply decided to go with the flow. If we couldn't sail to the Faroe Islands just yet, we'd go to the Orkney Islands instead. It's a wonderful way to live.
Yeah, I think we're ready for you to pull the jib out, Ashley.
Okay.
Good job.
Awesome.
What's that speed?
5.7.
We'll take that, it's nice.
It is nice.
We always listen to reason, follow rules if we must. We want to grab life by the balls before we turn to dust. Freedom is ours, the toll was paid by those men who went to war, and while adventure waits, the clock does not, so go on, go get yours.
It's so rare that this happens. The boat is so flat and smooth and lovely that I'm just sitting in the sea seat, and up into the cockpit keeping watch is the faithful assistant, crew and current skipper,
And I love the sound the sink is making next to me, gurgling away as the drain passes through the water. Reminds me of my childhood. Not just gurgling drains, sailing. But it's beautiful on board, absolutely beautiful. Someone once told me that the trick to sailing is to get the boat in the groove, and whilst it is impossible to explain what the groove is, you will know when you are in it. And this is Altor in the groove.
I believe this is called champagne sailing. We are doing over 6 knots. The sea is flat. It's beautiful. It's sunny. I'm loving it.
When sailing is like this, it ceases to be about a destination. The concept of time seems to ebb away and it becomes about the now and oneness with Mother Nature.
It's just so really different out there. It's so quiet in the cockpit and outside it's windy and kind of noisy. It's like a different world in here.
Well, up on the bow you can really hear the water, can't you, rushing past. But well, you know, I suppose we got 15 knots now. And this is beautiful passage making sailing, isn't it?
Ah, it's
It's awesome.
glorious.
Any thoughts that clutter my mind on land immediately fade away at sea. And this is how it needs to be, because nothing on land matters unless you can safely get the boat from A to B across the sea. We're getting used to this jibing when we've got the pole up. I think we found out it's best to roll the sail away, jibe the pole, and then pull the sail out on the new side. But it's pretty good. We're a bit better now because the boom was slapping around a little bit before, and now we've come a little bit more in line with the swell, so I think we're holding our own. What's our speed there, actually?
4.4.
Yeah, see, lovely, lovely. We can afford to be a bit slower. We're ahead of schedule. That's a very rare thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, but it often balances out itself.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? Funny enough. Yeah. Anyway, here we are. I'd like to think this is our tack for the rest of the trip. Another 45 miles until we're at Pentland Skerries. Hopefully at the right time of the tide. So there we are. What are you going to do on watch tonight? I'm going to watch a film.
I'm gonna eat.
On this delightful trip, we find ourselves confronted with a problem we haven't had before, and that is that we have got to go through somewhere called the Pentland Firth in order to get into Scapa Flow. And the Pentland Firth is one of the most notorious tidal races pretty much in the world, one of. And we have been flying along far faster than we thought we would today, because the wind has been stronger and Altor has been getting on with it, and we've just worked out that we have 35 miles to go, which is going to take us less than 7 hours, which will put us at the Pentland Firth in the dark against the tide. The tide can run at up to 16 knots west of the Pentland Skerries. It's not going to be running like that, but we've never been in this part before, and it would be frankly stupid to go in the dark somewhere we've never been against the tide. So, for the first time ever, we're about to take some sail down to slow us down. So, let's get on with it, shall we?
Yeah.
Are we in?
Nearly. Yeah, nearly. We are running by the lee, and the jib is jibing from time to time. However, no harm, because it's reefed to the second reef, and we are doing about 3 knots. So we should arrive at Pentland Firth about the time where the tide turns in our favour.
Asher is absolutely spot on, but the one thing that let that theory down was me. I was having too much fun for too long, enjoying Altor in the groove, and we arrived in Pentland Firth a little early. Although you could say we arrived in perfect time to experience a strong tide on the nose and a washing machine on the way to Scapa Flow. Us men don't slow down easily, you know. But we made it. Scapa Flow is rich in naval history. It was from here in 1916 that the Grand Fleet set to sea for the Battle of Jutland. In 1917, HMS Vanguard exploded at anchor and sank almost immediately with the loss of 843 men. During World War II, taking advantage of the old and decaying sea defences of World War I, U-boat 47 sneaked in undetected and torpedoed HMS Royal Oak while she was at anchor. 834 men died. When this sad news reached Churchill, he leapt into action with the construction of the Churchill Barriers to once again make Scapa Flow impenetrable from seaborne attack. Part of the story as to how these were constructed lies here in St Mary's. And no, it has nothing to do with this, but it does have a lot to do with the wonderful Italian chapel. A shortage of manpower to construct the barriers coincided with the capture of thousands of Italian soldiers fighting in North Africa. These prisoners helped to build the barriers, and they also built their own place of worship by joining two Nissen huts together. On entering, a couple of things happen. Firstly, of course, all sins are forgiven. Secondly, you have to recalibrate because nothing on the outside prepares you for how this place looks on the inside. The interior may look like it has been carved from stone, but it is in fact the artwork of one prisoner called Domenico Chiocchetti. Domenico was responsible for transforming the drab interior into the artwork that we see today. The creativity of the prisoners is impressive, with everything coming from materials on site, like these lanterns made from empty bully beef tins, or the beautiful artwork at the altar, a vision of the Madonna and Child and symbolising peace by the offering of an olive branch. But hang on a minute. Point of order, Madonna. If you're going to start your career singing about virgins and then end up by putting your snatch in a book about bondage, I think it's going to take more than an olive branch or two. Don't you?
It's coffee time on board Altor of Down. It is nearly 8 o'clock. We had a beautiful view out the stern of the boat when we woke up this morning, and that really feels like a welcome back to the wonderful life that is the cruising life. We're soon going to up anchor after enjoying being in this bay and move 5 miles north to Scapa Bay, and I think from there we can explore Kirkwall.
We left St Mary's feeling pretty uplifted by what we had seen at the chapel. When the history all around is so easy to see, it's impossible for it not to have an effect on you.
Well, it seems that the Orkney Islanders are celebrating our arrival. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
And so into the narrow streets of Kirkwall we went. The Orkney Islands are home to a couple of my favourites, and mischief was tempting me all around. I must remember, everything in moderation, including moderation itself. This wonder is Kirkwall Cathedral. Unusually, it doesn't belong to the church. It belongs to the people of Orkney, whatever those people are. I can't explain it, but somehow this didn't feel like a cathedral. I was expecting a typically vast space with an empty feeling, chilled by the coldness of old stone walls. God-fearing folk don't worry. This place is both warm and welcoming, with memorials to brave Arctic explorers who forged north before the age of navionics. And lest we forget the men of HMS Royal Oak, who died in terrifying circumstances in a frigidly cold Scapa Flow, and all for our freedom.
Tomorrow the wind goes a bit more southwesterly, so we thought we'd take this northwesterly and get ourselves to an anchorage on the island of Hoy, and we'll probably stay there for a couple of days before we move towards Stromness. So, cracking little spot. I love this sort of moving around Orkney day by day.
Yeah, there you go. That's called freedom, and it's the freedom that people died for. The inexplicable thing about this place is that the history is palpable, and because of this, there was somewhere that we needed to see. We landed 1 mile south from where we were anchored in Pegal Bay and made the rest of the journey on foot. We didn't know what to expect, but the silence was eerie. This part of Hoy felt desolate, lonely, with not a soul around, and even the old Hoy Hotel empty and disused. But what do you know? The Anchor Inn, the old school local pub where people gather to laugh and joke, and good old sense of humour, also called a coping mechanism. After a couple of beers, we left, bound for our destination.
Look, oh my goodness.
We can read about history, we can listen to the endless roll calls and numbers of those who have gone before us. But to me, numbers are actually hard to quantify because they're so impersonal. It's not until you see the names before you when the whole history takes on a life force all of its own, albeit in another dimension. And what of that other dimension? Well, I'd like to think that on that side, there are no sides. Just peace and love. You all paid the ultimate price for our freedom. And although it feels so weak of me to say this, thank you. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Adventure Now. Altor out.